All right, part 7. Achilles grows up. Thetis could take no more. Upset and cross, she left her husband and child and disappeared back into the sea, never to return. What do they think this is? No, it's not this. It's Thetis, the sea nymph. Google. Anyway, Pelias was distressed at the loss of his lovely wife. Because of his sorrow, he took Achilles up to Mount Pelion and turned him over to the care of a wise centaur named Chiron. Chiron was entrusted by many fine families in Greece to raise their sons to become heroes. And those of you that know mythology right now are your ears are perking up at this. The centaur loved Achilles and brought him up as if he were his own son. He fed him the flesh of mountain lions to give him courage and sweet honeycombs to make him run swiftly. Achilles was taught well in all areas, including music, healing, and athletics. He grew into a handsome youth with a mass of golden curls, and his skills were unsurpassed. So basically, the marriage of Thetis and Pelias breaks up, and they send Achilles to hero school taught by Chiron the centaur. All right, Trojan War time. As Achilles grew into a strong and vibrant youth atop Mount Pelion with Chiron the centaur, the clouds of war were gathering throughout Greece. Warriors and princes assembled, preparing to sail in battle to Troy. Agamemnon organized the troops to defend his brother's honor and seek revenge. They met at the port of Aulis, and over 1,000 ships set sail. Achilles had been isolated in the mountains and therefore had not been called upon to do battle. When he heard of the coming war, he immediately set out for Troy. Chiron presented the boy with a magic spear that would fight true for only him. He also gave him a mighty shield covered in ivory and jewels, and tunics and cloaks to protect him against the biting winds. Achilles sought out his cousin Patroclus to join him on his journey. Patroclus was older, but not nearly as skilled as the brave Achilles. Achilles loved his cousin more than anyone else in the world. While sailing across the Aegean, the two warriors encountered Thetis the sea nymph and Achilles. Oh, Achilles is. No, it's Achilles is. There is one Achilles, so this is the, not to go all grammar on you. You may know like S', that's wrong. No. Not when it comes to names, because there's one Achilles, then it's S'. That's why English is hard. All right, so anyway, Achilles' mother, who had left him as an infant, she warned them to let someone else land at Troy first, because the first to set foot on Trojan soil would surely die. As Achilles and Patroclus waited at the enemy coastline, the warning of Thetis came true. The first man to land was stabbed by Hector, the eldest prince of Troy. He was the main leader of the Trojan army throughout what was to become a long and bloody war. Agamemnon led the bravest of Greece's warriors into battle against Troy, but the Trojans were prepared. They held firm inside their walled city. Achilles, in frustration, attacked a temple on the beach in honor of the god Apollo. He chopped off the head of a golden Apollo statue. Never a good idea. Okay, so let's summarize this. So long story short, Achilles and the Greeks are taking on Hector and the Trojans, and Achilles makes this, basically he rages at the temple of Apollo, which is not going to be a good idea. So here we go. Oh, and Achilles has magic weapons that only work for him. He has a magic spear and a shield and all this stuff that are like special from Chiron, his like personal trainer of heroes. All right, Achilles meets Briseis. As war continued, Achilles and his magic spear won battle after battle. His name became the most feared in the entire army. During a bold attack on the nearby city of Lyrnessus, Achilles met a beautiful princess named Briseis. He fell in love with the enchanting creature, but could not make her his wife because she was Trojan. She belongs to, like, Troy. Instead, he took her back to his camp to make her his serving maid. So that was all a cover so they could still date. But she's a Trojan, and here he is a Greek who's fighting Troy, but they fall in love. Achilles did not get along particularly well with Agamemnon, the leader of the Greeks. Agamemnon was jealous of the notoriety Achilles was receiving, and soon they had an argument over Briseis. Agamemnon had found himself a beautiful captive, but he had been forced to send her back to Troy when it was discovered that she was a true priestess. Out of jealousy and spite, Agamemnon pulled rank on Achilles and took Briseis for himself. Achilles could not retaliate against his leader, so in anger and despair, he stormed off to his tent and removed himself from the war. The future looked bleak for the Greek war effort. At first, the Greeks refused to believe that such a great warrior would sulk over a Trojan woman. That's correct, Google. What are you trying to tell me? No, it's one woman. But as the days passed, Achilles remained in his tent. Soon word traveled across Troy that the great Achilles had quit fighting. The Trojans returned to the battlefield with renewed hope. They knew they had a chance of defeating the enemy if they didn't have to face the invincible Achilles. Soon the Trojans gained the upper hand. In one fierce battle, both Agamemnon and the king of Ithaca, Odysseus, were brutally wounded. Even with this news, Achilles would not leave his tent to help save the Greek army. So, Achilles meets this girl, Briseis. She's a Trojan. He's a Greek. We have this romantic love story. But then Agamemnon is jealous because he found a woman, but it turned out she was a priestess to the gods. And Agamemnon's like, I can't mess with that. So he says, you know what, Achilles? I'm sick of you getting all the credit. I'm the leader of these troops. And people say that you're the reason we're winning. He is the reason they're winning. Anyway, so he says, if that's supposedly just your serving maid and nothing more, you'll have no problem if she works for me. And Achilles is like, you know, that's not what she really is. You're a jerk. I quit. So without Achilles, the Greeks start losing. All right, part 10, Achilles returns with a vengeance. When Achilles lost his love Briseis to Agamemnon, he lost all will to fight, and the Greeks were devastated on the battlefields. It was Patroclus who finally saved the day. This brave cousin of Achilles was determined to turn away the Trojans. He ran forward, dressed in Achilles' armor, and hurled a spear into the Trojan masses. The deceit worked. The Trojans mistook Patroclus for Achilles and ran away in fear. Patroclus then led the Greek army and chased the Trojans all the way back to their walled city. Word reached Achilles of his cousin's brave deed. He mustered his strength and gathered more forces to help his beloved Patroclus. It was too little, too late. Just as Achilles arrived on the battle scene, Patroclus took a blow between his shoulder blades that hurled him to the ground. Achilles ran over to help, but was intercepted by Hector, who rode up and with one mighty blow killed Patroclus. Achilles let loose with a chilling war cry, probably like, no, like one of those things. He re-entered the battle full of grief and vengeance that knew no mercy. Eventually, he was able to recover the body of Patroclus from the Trojans and give him a proper burial by sea with full honors. Agamemnon brought Briseis to the funeral and made peace with Achilles. Standing beside his cousin's grave, Achilles vowed to avenge his cousin's death. So, Greeks are losing. Patroclus dresses in Achilles' armor. It inspires the Greeks. And Achilles is like, what? Patroclus is fighting? I need to go help him. But it's too late. Hector, the leader of the Trojans, kills Patroclus. And now you have angry Achilles. Here we go. Part 11, Hector versus Achilles. Up to this point, Achilles and Hector had not faced each other on the battlefield, but now a deep hatred sweltered between them. Hector sent word to the camp that he wished to challenge Achilles in single combat. That means like one-on-one. Achilles willingly accepted. It was a clear and sunny morning when the two soldiers faced each other amidst a crowd. Hector wore black and silver armor and carried a sword in one hand and a spear in another. Hearing of her son's challenge, Thetis visited Achilles in the night and presented him with a special suit of golden armor. As he stepped forward in it, the reflection of the sun almost blinded those standing nearby. Achilles attacked, fiercely motivated by the memory of his dear cousin. Hector was the stronger of the two soldiers, but Achilles was far quicker and more agile. Suddenly, A cry rang out amid the Trojans. Achilles had stabbed Hector through the heart. As he crumpled to his knees, Hector begged, "Please let my parents have a body to bury honorably." "Never," cried Achilles as he viciously twisted his sword and watched the last glimmer of life leave Hector's eyes. Achilles then tied Hector's body to his chariot and dragged it in the dirt as he circled the walls of Troy. King Priam and the Trojans were horrified. King Priam then went to Achilles and threw himself on the ground in front of the warrior. "You have proven to be a great warrior, now prove you are a great man. Return my son to Troy." Achilles, moved by this gesture, wept and gave orders to return the body to Troy. He then called for a truce to last 12 days so that Hector could have an honorable funeral. All right, so Achilles versus Hector. Achilles wins, and it's pretty brutal. And yeah, that's intense. Dragging the body in the dirt on a chariot. Oof. All right, here we go. This is I believe this is the last part. Trojan Horse. For 10 long years, the bloody battle between Greece and Troy raged on. The siege is not going well, thought Odysseus, hero and king of Ithaca. He wondered if the terrible death toll was too high for the rescue of one person. The person in question was Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world. It was for her and the honor of Greece that this war must end in victory. The Greeks thought long and hard about ways to end the war. Perhaps if they made special offerings to the gods might look favorably upon their gifts and reward them with the city of Troy. Odysseus was struck by that idea. A gift! They would offer the Trojans a mysterious gift. They would build a huge and glorious wooden horse and a hollow belly. The horse would be left outside the gates of Troy as if it were a peace offering. Unknown to the Trojans, inside the horse's belly would be a Greek fighting force. When the magnificent beast was completed, it was pulled into place outside the massive gates of Troy. That night, under the cover of darkness, a small band of chosen warriors hid inside. When dawn broke the next day, the rest of the Greeks made a big show of leaving sadly as if in defeat. They boarded their ships and sailed away, leaving the horse behind as tribute to their victors. The Trojans were overjoyed. With shouts of triumph, they swarmed out of the city walls. For years, they had been forced to stay inside, and now the land was theirs once more. But what was this horse? The Trojans were puzzled as to why the Greeks would build such a thing and then leave it behind. Was it a curse or a blessing? A Trojan priest approached the horse suspiciously. He walked around the giant steed, admiring it, inspecting it, and finally wrapping it? No, wrong wrapping it. It means like knocking it. Like that with his staff. A hollow thud rang out. The sound sent chills through the priests. "I do not like this horse," he cried to King Priam. "We must burn and destroy it, or else I fear it will destroy us." The people of Troy were frightened by the priest's words. They began to take measures to burn the wooden beast, and the soldiers inside feared for their lives. Then the gods interfered. Athena and Hera had vowed to punish Troy for the judgment of Paris. They could not let the Trojans win. They sent a huge serpent from the ocean onto the shore. The monstrous creature twined its poisonous coils around the sons of the priests. When he tried to save them, he too was killed. The people of Troy took this as a sign that the gods were not pleased with the priest's predictions, and they dragged the horse through the gates of their city as a symbol of their hard-won victory. For hours, the Trojans celebrated, drinking, feasting, and dancing. Later that night, when Troy was silent and still, the belly of the horse opened and the band of soldiers crept out. They quietly opened the gates to their army, which had sailed back during the night. The Greeks swept in and killed all who challenged them. King Priam was slain, and most of the women were taken as slaves. Apollo got his revenge on Achilles for attacking the temple earlier in the war. As Paris spotted Achilles and tried to defend Troy, he shot an arrow at the Greek hero. Apollo guided that arrow right into the heel of Achilles. the one spot that had not been washed in the river Styx. Achilles was then weakened and killed by Paris. The Greeks had finally won the war. Helen was taken and returned to Sparta and her husband, King Menelaus. In an effort to save Helen, Paris is killed by the Greeks. Once back in Sparta, Menelaus executed her for treason. After all that, a Trojan named Aeneas led a group of people out of Troy. They were only to survive and later settle in Italy. And let me just go back over here. So here's Troy. Aeneas leads these people over here, and they eventually settle in Italy. And the descendants of Aeneas, they become the Romans. So the Trojans eventually become the Romans, which is kind of funny, like years and years and years and years and years and years later. Before sailing back to Greece, the Mycenaeans made sure their victory was complete. They set fire to Troy. Hecuba's dream of giving birth to a flame that would destroy Troy had indeed come true. Because of Paris, her son, the city of Troy burned to the ground. And that is the epic story, the Iliad.